Welcome to episode 236 of the Shared Security Show. And joining me are the great and powerful co-hosts, Kevin Johnson, one of many great and powerful co-hosts. And the other co-host here is the back from vacation guy,
Yes,
Mr. Scott Wright.
Yes.
He looks relaxed.
All refreshed, recharged, relaxed, ready to go.
Look how relaxed he is. Look at that.
Yeah. Did you enjoy your vacation?
It was awesome. Yeah, we went out to Vancouver Island and toured around the very farthest western extremes of Canada.
So can I ask, Kevin is an idiot for geography, and this is not a Kevin is an idiot about Canadian geography. I'm just an idiot.
Of course,
about
you
geography.
can ask any questions. Yes.
When you say Vancouver Island, is that part of Vancouver, or is it a separate?
Good question. I mean, it's one of those anomalies that kind of confuses people. Vancouver, British Columbia is a city in the province of British Columbia. Vancouver Island is an island in the province of British Columbia, which is quite large. And so it's not a city. It has a number of cities. It's got Victoria. It's got Tofino, which is one of the most beautiful tourist destinations for surfers, great beaches. Ucluelet is nearby, really great western coast, rocky coastline.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So similar to how, I can't think of the name of one of the Hawaiian islands, but it's an island, and then there are cities on the island.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, like, for us, here in Jacksonville, we have Amelia Island, but Amelia Island is a city itself, right? It's also an island, but
the other confusing thing is there's also a Vancouver, Washington, which is not far from Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yes. I almost ran into that problem the very first time I went to Vancouver, British Columbia, that I almost ended up in Vancouver, Washington. I have always said, well, not always, but since I went to Vancouver the first time, that, San Diego is my favorite city in the United States.
Yes.
Vancouver is actually my favorite city in North America.
Wow, that's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Vancouver.
I mean, I know everybody loves Vancouver. It's funny. There's a joke in Canada. If you go to Vancouver, if you're going to live in Vancouver, you expect rain all the time, right? Just because it's a rainy climate. But we think now, after having gone there, that's just a ruse to kind of keep people from going there. Because it was actually beautiful when we were there, and everything's beautiful. So yeah.
So it's funny. I say the same thing about Seattle. Seattle has this.
They're very close. They're very close.
And every single time I've been to Seattle, it has not rained.
Yeah.
Like maybe a drizzle when I land.
Yeah.
But that's
it's just
for the week I'm there.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's true that Seattle rains all the time, what they need is for me to move there because it'll stop.
That's a good point.
There you go.
That's a good point.
Yep. Good vacation. Ready to get back into things.
Awesome. So while we get back into things, there was a data breach at Twitter that I don't think got a lot of media attention when it happened, but a hacker called the Devil has stolen the data of 5.4 million users and is selling that for $30,000 on some hacker forums. But I can actually say that the Devil did it.
The devil made him do it.
Yes. Yeah.
But
I'll be here the rest of the podcast, folks.
Yeah. But so, but it's interesting. It was more of a I guess they did exploit a vulnerability in the technology.
Yes.
And they were basically using, was it phone numbers to sort of reverse look up Twitter IDs and then build the rest of the profiles, something like that?
Yeah. You get the Twitter ID from the phone number, and then based on the Twitter ID, you can get the information about the Twitter user and go from there. My understanding is it's a multi-step process. It's interesting. Something I wasn't clear on, and so I'm asking. It appeared to me that when we say the Twitter user's data, it was their phone number and email address.
That's correct.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it didn't get any private messages or access to the account or anything like that. Am I correct in my understanding?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. And I think
that doesn't downplay the issue here. I'm just, when we say data, I want to make sure that I understood correctly what that meant. this is, for me, one of the things that we often talk to customers about when we do tests are username type harvesting flaws.
Yes.
And so often customers will say, it's just a username, it's just this. And this is the perfect example of how you can take something that many people would think was innocuous and then use the infrastructure, application, whatever, to harvest more. Like it's a beachhead that you expand, and right. And to me, that is the most interesting part of this. Yeah, the 30K, whatever, the guy's handle being devil is kind of funny, but let me take something that I bet you that if anybody said to somebody, hey, I can get, we just had it with a customer. We just had a customer that we said, hey, we can get this ID. It's not a username. It's an ID for the something about the account. I'm being vague on purpose. And at first, the customer was like, I don't think that's that big a deal. And we're like, no, we think it is. And then they looked into it more because we were like, hey, we're not really sure what you use this ID for.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's really sensitive and I can get access to it. And it took them a little bit. And then they came back to us and said, you know what? We've looked at our systems and you're right. This is a bigger deal than we thought. And I think this Twitter thing is the same thing. I bet you if you said to Twitter, hey, I can put a phone number in and get this ID, you're like, wow, that sucks, but it's not critical.
Yeah. On the surface, to a lot of people, it probably looks a little bit, like on the fringes of security by obscurity, even though it's not really public information, it kind of is. But there's no point in making it accessible or identifiable if it's not necessary. So, yeah.
Yeah. And these are the types of vulnerabilities. I mean, we talk about all the time that, like insecure direct object reference, things that are, only found through really manual means. You're not going to throw a scanner up and it's going to, detect these types of vulnerabilities in an application. But these are the ones that I'd say are most critical that we find, like in our pen tests, and I know you do as well, Kevin. That some companies just don't know that they have these types of issues, and these can be devastating. I think the real risk here, though, is because they had said they're celebrities and OGs, right, that had their phone numbers and emails exposed. That could be, detrimental. If that's the real phone number that goes directly to a celebrity.
There's multiple levels of risk assessment you can do on it, right? To say, what's the risk to Twitter as an enterprise and what's the risk to each user from a personal privacy point of view.
Right. Well, and if it's Kevin's phone number, it doesn't really
matter at all.
Kevin's phone number is all over the
internet. Everybody knows 904-403-8024.
Right. Now you can all
that number again, folks.
904-403-8024. My phone number is in so many places. It is public.
Oh yeah. All right. So with that, let's move into our favorite segment. Aware much?
Aware much. Yeah, thanks. Indeed, it is time for Aware much, and brought to you by ClickArmor, the first fully gamified security awareness training and engagement platform. So one thing that many people don't realize is that all software has vulnerabilities, right?
And say it isn't so.
Sorry to break it to you guys. As we talked about, though, on a previous episode, just before I left for vacation, there are a lot of vulnerabilities there's so many vulnerabilities that businesses really have, started bug bounty programs. They pay people to find bugs in their software so they can fix them before attackers actually find them. But there are a lot of vulnerabilities that don't actually get patched right away. And that's a problem that a lot of people need to be aware of, right? So we found this research that is highlighting that attackers are really eager to exploit newly found vulnerabilities, whether a patch exists or not, mostly because a lot of organizations take time to get their software patches done. So what do we know about how fast attackers are targeting these vulnerabilities, Tom?
We know that it only takes 15 minutes, essentially, after a bug is disclosed.
That's as quick as you can get an insurance quote.
According to this research. That's right. that's a great. You just gave them a plug.
I need to say
Are they now a sponsor?
Oh man, that was awesome. I'm sorry.
That's really awesome. Yeah.
This one is interesting to me. We've always said, and I know that there's been studies and research and things like that about how fast attackers will start using exploit data. 15 minutes to see widespread scanning is interesting to me. That is the fastest I've heard. Obviously people can do it faster, but the aspect of widespread scanning in 15 minutes is, man, we're making the tools too easy. No, that's not true.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to analyze the problem. I didn't even realize, people were looking for those kinds of events, the scanning for specific types of vulnerabilities that you can identify that. So that's cool.
Yeah. The other stat I thought was interesting in that research was, so based out of incident response cases, they said 37% phishing was the biggest method for initial access, followed by software vulnerabilities for 31%. So, 31% is a lot, but and that's what we're talking about in this article or this research is 15 minutes to start finding a 0-day vulnerability that's been released.
Yeah.
But we still can't discount phishing as one of those still attack vectors.
Oh, I mean, certainly. And I guess the key thing that makes things add up here is that technical vulnerabilities are only part of the security incidents that occur, right? I mean, there's password theft and all kinds of social engineering attacks, right? So, yeah.
I think personally, the phishing stuff, absolutely. User error, user attacks, user maliciousness, whatever is biggest. But I think the awareness aspect here is to make sure that organizations, both the IT people, which I'd like to believe that all IT people know this, but I know that's a fantasy. But the businesses that support those IT people also have to understand how fast this happens.
Yeah.
Right. Like we see patches constantly, and as coming from an IT background, I started in IT back in 1991 because I'm old, and the number of times we would put change tickets in to do patches and have them rejected because of some imagined outage that could be caused. And I say imagine, not that you can't cause an outage, but so often it would be like, well, is there any chance for an outage? Yeah, there's always a chance.
Yeah.
Well, then we can't approve it. No, but there's this other issue, right? And like being aware that this is happening so fast and so widespread.
Yeah, for sure. And
can help with that.
It's definitely an awareness issue that's a little deeper than, the normal ones we try, because people who are so bad at general awareness to start with. The low hanging fruit is always the basic phishing and social engineering stuff. But the next level really is, the role based training of people who have security responsibilities. And that includes the vulnerability management team, who has a responsibility for looking at all the newer vulnerabilities that occur in software and deciding when they should schedule them, when they should test them, etc. So totally, it's an awareness thing within a smaller but very important part of the enterprise.
Yep.
Cool.
Good stuff.
So this episode was brought to you by ClickArmor, the first gamified security awareness training and engagement program, which reduces employees' phishing vulnerability by 60% through our unique immersive virtual inbox phishing simulator. Now, a lot of security people still don't realize the many pitfalls of live phishing tests, and I've documented over a dozen of them. I did a whole thread this morning on Twitter about it. But I'd also like to point out that we've actually been running a number of live sessions recently. We call the Cybersecurity Awareness Forum, with a panel of veteran security people from different organizations, different industries, on various topics like Security Awareness Month and compliance training awareness issues. So you can sign up to get an invite to our next live session. We're going to do them on an ongoing basis now, and view our recorded episodes in the past at clickarmor.ca/CSAF. That's CSAF for Cybersecurity Awareness Forum. So take advantage of the growing grassroots movement to share lessons learned about security awareness and other IT security and professional observations and interests in the Cybersecurity Awareness Forum. Thanks a lot, folks. And that's it for this episode of Aware Much.
So let me ask you both a question.
Mm-hmm.
do you think that you can recognize a deep fake video?
Yes.
If you saw one?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Absolutely. I recognize all deep fakes. They're, I just have that skill.
I'm not good at it at all. Yeah.
No.
Kevin could be a deep fake and I wouldn't notice.
I am a deep fake. I don't actually exist.
We've deep faked Kevin in this podcast. The technology we use for this show is so advanced that Kevin is not real.
And nobody noticed.
No one noticed.
I would argue that probably nobody cared if I was real.
Or no one cared. Yeah.
Like they notice, be like, whatever. It's just
That's probably more the reason why I haven't been able to spot them. But it's actually, I think it is a really important issue, and I think it's probably. In fact, I think at our last year-end show, I might have hinted that my forecast for the next year was that deepfakes would become, one of the big things. If not, then I'll do that next year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they are.
You can go back and edit that episode so we make you say it by deep faking.
See, that's true.
Not that important.
Yeah, maybe we deep fake Scott. Yeah.
Yes. We've talked about deepfakes before. We all know Kevin's opinion. I love them. Because they're at the same time that I hate them, they're one step closer to a holodeck. And I want a holodeck. I love augmented reality.
That's all he cares about. He just wants to.
I love VR. I want a holodeck. Right. That's it.
Yeah.
And the only way to get to a holodeck is to make deepfake technology work.
Yeah, and because holodecks will guarantee job security forever.
Exactly. Well, but I don't know. But I recognize and see the horrific problems that can be caused by deepfakes. Right, especially in societies that we have put stigmas on certain activities. Not to be rude, but people have died because they've been accused of cheating on their spouse or sleeping with somebody before marriage or whatever. People have died because of their sexual preference, and the ability to deep fake somebody in that position.
Right.
I absolutely love the idea of deepfakes and believe that one of the mandatory things we have to be able to do is have some way of knowing if they are faked, right? And so I really like this research.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about, this research that came out. Yep.
The only concern I have about the research is they made a note in it. And in the article that I read, they kind of downplayed. They did not actually detect any real deepfakes. What they did is they created a program to fake a deepfake.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm
no, you're right. That's yeah.
Yeah. They and in my head, and I'm not. Let me be very clear. I'm not that smart. I barely made it out of high school. But my worry about this research is they had a hypothesis that the frames, because of the way deepfakes work, right? The synopsis, if I understood it correctly, and Tom and Scott, you're both smarter than I am, so correct me if I misunderstood it. But the way deepfake works is it takes each frame individually and makes that change. The software currently does not do an overview, right? A big picture assessment. And because of that, the hypothesis is that the frames don't match from one frame to the next. Does not match is a bad summary, I think.
Yeah. Temporal spatial consistency, I think they called it, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what they did was they created software to change videos in that way and then verified that they could detect it. And my issue with that, and this is why I believe I'm probably missing something big, but my issue with that is it feels to me like they had a hypothesis, so they built software to generate stuff that matched that hypothesis, and then unsurprisingly were able to detect the hypothesis.
I don't think that test. I don't think that test was very useful. I agree. But
so I feel like I feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah. Scientific method, Kevin.
So
no, I don't think. Like I said, I'm not that smart, but the way I remember the scientific method was you came up with a hypothesis and then you tested whether the hypothesis was correct. Not you came up with a hypothesis, you generated stuff that matched the hypothesis, and then verified it was
there
right.
You go. Yeah. So I got a couple of thoughts on this. Number one is, pardon me if I sort of get on my high horse, as I usually do, right? I'm very outspoken about this stuff, right? But I am an electrical engineer by training decades ago. So I remember there in the theory of things like pulse code modulation. And I think that's kind of where this whole thing is going. You know, these codexes that are used, they compress video a lot by basically doing what they call a keyframe, which has all the detail needed for an image at a certain point. And then for a period of time, the rest of the frames are generated by estimating differences between that frame and what should really be there. And there's some error in that. And so that's, you know, where you can't get completely lossless compression. But because it's just doing estimations, there's a lot of data there that is really just deltas, right, in each frame. And so you really can't replicate that if you are creating the complete exact replication of the detail you want in every frame. And so what they're just noticing in this analysis method is that there's not nearly enough of that estimation going on an ongoing basis in a deepfake. Now, the counter to that the deepfake guys could do, and I think the article even pointed out, the deepfake people haven't really even focused on trying to obfuscate or hide the fact that it's a deepfake, but they will.
Yeah.
And all they need to do is run a pulse code modulation or some other sort of transform on their end result one more time to generate all those deltas to make it more realistic. So I don't think it's going to be a big inhibitor if people really want to hide this stuff.
Yeah. The biggest problem I see here with deepfakes in general and detection of it is, this is going to sound rude, probably, but I'm a jerk. How many people are you connected to in the world that can be told facts and ignore them because they believe something else? We've already seen that there is an entire population of morons that believe that Trump won the election, and there's a deep state lizard group that is preventing him from taking his fascist power. Sorry.
We don't get.
It doesn't matter how many cases that we show that, yep, they lost that one, they lost that one, they lost that one, they have no proof. Oh, we have proof. Release the proof. No, we won't release the proof because we don't really have the proof. Now, I know you don't have the proof because you're a moron. So even if we put a video of Scott making out with Katy Perry, I don't know.
Who?
An American famous person.
And I use that example because I thought it was funny because her song was "I Kissed a Girl," and that was like the song I knew her of. But if we put that video out there, even if we prove that Scott's never met Katy Perry, people will still believe it. So
it's not a technology issue at that point.
Exactly. Well, no, I would agree with you, except for the fact that you added at that point. Deepfakes aren't a technology problem; they are a problem. And until problem. And this is coming from the guy that loves them. I want deepfakes. I want the holodeck. But until we fix the critical thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't even need people to be that smart.
If we can't get people to figure out how to analyze a sender email address domain or a link or some basic social engineering attack, they certainly aren't going to be able to identify deepfakes without technology, right? So, and then the question is, will they even believe it if they have to go to that much trouble to get the technology to verify it, right? So
exactly. I mean, we've seen deepfakes that were I wouldn't even call them deepfakes. I would call them shallow fakes of Barack Obama saying things that I, to this day, see idiots sharing. And it's like,
they still do.
I don't mean to be rude, but like, do you remember what was, never mind. It just, we're always going to have this problem if people don't pay attention. And I worry that if we focus on a technology solution if we put all this focus on a technology solution, we will never address or even attempt to address the underlying problem that people wallow in their ignorance. They enjoy their ignorance. God, people are stupid.
And with that is how we're going to end the show this week.
Thank you.
We're about to change the name of our podcast.
Yeah.
God, people are stupid. Welcome to episode 1 of God, People Are Stupid.
All right, guys. Well, thank you as always for coming on the show.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to everyone next week.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, hit that like and subscribe button. To catch all the latest from the show, visit our website, sharedsecurity.net. Follow us on Twitter at SharedSec, and join our Reddit community on the Shared Security Show subreddit.